You may be already familiar with Marvel at this point, right? I mean, over the past several years, they have produced movies after movies, capturing the interest of a large audience and luring them into the world of superheroes and comic books. Well, a few months ago this year, Marvel published a 5-issue mini-series comic that follows the story of Miles Morales, an Afro-Latina teenager who assumes the role of well-known superheroes in the Marvel universe. But taking a character and having them adopt the identity of an already well-established character, altering essentially nothing about them except their race, it is definitely a disaster waiting to happen, and it caused the industry with a lack of innovation. But anyways, by now you should be familiar with one of their most well-known characters called Thor, right? You know, the godly Caucasian man portrayed in the movies by the fan favorite actor Chris Hemsworth. In one of the issues, we follow Miles' journey as the Asgardian warrior Thor, and let's just say it was awful. It basically tests the narrative if Thor was of an African American descent, but the problem was that it was full of stereotyping, an absurd number of stereotyping in fact. It was so awful that they had to apologize after a massive backlash on social media following the release of the issue. Even on page 1, we are given a sneak preview of one of the many stereotypes that will be present in this book. It begins with a rap rhyme that the book referred to as top verse in order to appeal to the black readers, and by turning to the next page, we are given one of the worst representations of what a black community would actually look like. You know, Asgard, supposedly a godly utopia, is now the hood, littered with graffiti and, worst of all, shoes hanging from telephone wires, which are often associated with organized crime and can only symbolize either of the location of a crack house or drug dealing area, the mark of a gang turf, or the death of a gang member. Clearly, none of them fairly represent what a black community is like. And the fact that the author, who is not African American, depicts Miles and his companions using slang throughout the whole issue does not help. It is clear that they do not always speak in that manner, but it is very stereotypical of how the media portrays black people. And I'm not even sure how this run got approved by the folks at Marvel, because this issue even managed to connect with the racist stereotype about black people and their purported passions for chickens by having a black female character called Sif flying in while altering the sentence, "Hot wings coming in hot." And finally, one of the lines shouted by Miles during a fight in the final issue of the run, instead of saying the usual line, "by Odin's beard," by the original Thor, Miles goes on to say, "by Odin's fate," which is funny because in this version, Odin does not even have fate, let alone a hair. He is as bald as Daddy Corbusier, and despite the fact that Odin in this incarnation also has a beard, the writer just felt obligated to include the previous remark. And to conclude, I would like to add some personal opinions of my own. You know, many people, including me, find this comic funny for how awful and tone deaf it is. It has since gained a reputation as a laughingstock in social media for the obvious reasons I mentioned before. And although this clear stereotyping portrayal may be used to justify the fact that person of colors or POC characters should be created by POC authors, as many people argued on social media, a character, in my opinion, should not just be written by members of the same group as the character. This issue is only one of the regrettable instances of poor writing done by writers who are unable to portray POC right. Everyone, in my opinion, should be allowed to create characters from any group as long as the work is fiction, because I believe it fosters imagination. If not, people would just stop writing altogether and there will be a lot fewer media to consume in existence. However, in order to avoid offending anyone, authors should get familiar with the customs of a particular culture and what to stay away from when writing. And that is a bit of a rant from me. Thank you for tuning in. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.